Snooker is a game built on silence, patience, and respect. The players wear waistcoats, bow ties, and a sense of calm that rarely slips. Every handshake, every nod, every apology for a fluke. It's part of the game's unwritten code. But under that polished surface lies something far more human. Pressure.
Ego. Pride.
And when those emotions break through, we see moments that shatter the illusion of gentlemanly perfection. Moments that remind us even in a sport defined by discipline. Sometimes the mask cracks. The year is 2000. The venue, Prestatyn, Wales. Quinton Han, the Australian firebrand, has just lost to Andy Hicks in a tense, bad-tempered qualifying match. The handshake is cold. Words are exchanged. Hicks walks away, thinking it's over. But Han follows. He takes off his waistcoat, then his cufflinks, and offers Hicks a fight. Right there, in front of officials and cameras. Hicks refuses, and keeps taunting him, gesturing for him to step outside. Officials rush in. The grainy footage still floats around online today, one of the most shocking scenes ever seen in professional snooker. Han was fined and condemned by the governing body. For many fans, it was the day. Snooker's quiet dignity turned into a pub car park standoff. It wasn't mind games. It wasn't protest. It was raw aggression. And it set the tone for one of the wildest careers the sport ever saw. Because for all its refinement, snooker has never been immune to eruptions of emotion. Through the years, tempers have flared, cues have been slammed, and sportsmanship has dissolved under pressure. No story shows that better than Alex Higgins, the Hurricane. He was lightning in human form, electrifying, emotional, and utterly unpredictable. In 1986, at the UK Championship, Higgins was locked in battle with Mike Hallett when a routine dispute with referee John Williams turned violent. Higgins jabbed his cue toward the referee's chest, shouting, his face twisted with rage. The crowd fell silent. Even Hallett looked frozen. It took officials and friends to calm him down. Fined, suspended, publicly shamed, Higgins still couldn't stop himself. For every moment of genius, there was an outburst waiting to happen. He was a man who played the game as if the balls had wronged him personally. Snooker's code of etiquette survived those storms, but it was tested again in 2011. Mark Allen, fiery and outspoken, faced newcomer Chow Yupeng in the UK Championship. Mid-match, Chow appeared to brush a ball without calling a foul, something players usually confess instantly. The referee missed it. Allen didn't. He fumed. After losing, Allen told the press his opponent showed a total lack of class. Then he took to social media criticizing Chinese players in general. The reaction was brutal. Accusations of arrogance and disrespect filled the headlines. Allen later apologized, but the damage was done. One moment of heat had scorched his reputation. But unsporting behavior doesn't always erupt as shouting. It can smolder slowly. In 2005, Peter Ebdon faced Ronnie O'Sullivan in the World Championship quarterfinals. Ebdon, known for control and focus, adopted a pace so glacial it seemed designed to break Ronnie's rhythm. At one point, he spent over 3 minutes deliberating a simple pot. 3 minutes. O'Sullivan leaned on his cue, eyes rolling, body language screaming frustration. Ebdon eventually won. It was legal, but to fans it felt like psychological warfare. The tactic worked, but at the cost of sportsmanship. Even the calmest men crack. Stephen Hendry, 7-time world champion, master of composure, did just that at the 1998 Grand Prix. After a fiery semifinal with Ken Doherty, Hendry lost. He packed his cue, turned his back, and refused the handshake. The audience gasped. Hendry, usually ice-cool, had boiled over. If he could lose control, anyone could. But the game's greatest tempests always circle back to Alex Higgins. In 1989, at the Irish Masters, he accused the referee of bias mid-match and refused to continue. He simply folded his arms, stood still, and refused to play another shot. Officials tried reason. Nothing worked. The match was forfeited. Higgins stormed out to booze, face pale with fury. It was theater, absurd and tragic all at once. Then came the breaking point. 1990 World Championship. Higgins lost to Steve James, stormed into the players' room, and punched the tournament director. Not a shove, a punch. It was unforgivable. He was banned for a year, his career all but finished. The Hurricane had finally blown himself out. Sometimes unsportsmanlike behavior hides behind friendship. In 2008, Stephen Maguire and Jamie Burnett, two close friends, met in a UK Championship qualifier. The match looked odd. The pace, the shot choices, the exact 9-3 scoreline, everything felt off. Betting patterns matched the result perfectly. An investigation followed. Both denied wrongdoing, and no charges were made. But for fans, trust was broken. The suspicion alone stained the match forever. And sometimes, disrespect appears not in words or actions, but in silence. In 2018, Mark Williams, normally easygoing, lost a bitter match and refused to shake his opponent's hand. No words, no eye contact, just a walk. That handshake is sacred in snooker, a ritual of respect. When Williams broke it, the room froze. Ronnie O'Sullivan, meanwhile, has turned press conferences into their own theater of controversy. He's walked out mid-question, given one-word answers, and mocked interviewers with surreal humor. After an 8-1 Masters win in 2008, he began joking about chicks and booze live on air, leaving BBC presenters squirming. He later apologized, but the moment joined the long list of Ronnie's unpredictable acts, the kind that blur genius with rebellion. In 2018, that tension exploded physically. O'Sullivan versus Ollie Carter at the World Championship. A shoulder bump during their handshake. Carter glaring. Ronnie smirking. Words exchanged. The Crucible audience in stunned silence. For a few seconds, the Temple of Calm became a boxing ring. Snooker had seen anger before, but this was pure confrontation. Neither man backed down. Afterward, both downplayed it, but the images told the story. Two competitors boiling over under unbearable pressure. Mark Allen added to the sport's long list of moral debates when, in 2018 against Karen Wilson, cameras appeared to show him brushing a ball with his sleeve. He didn't call a foul. The referee missed it. Wilson erupted. Social media split in half. Was it deliberate, or did Allen genuinely not notice? In a game built on honesty, even doubt is damaging. Slow play. Fast tempas. Silent protests. Every generation brings its own flavor of controversy. But few moments match the slow-burn mental warfare of Ebdon's 2005 tactics. Few equal the fury of Higgins' 1986 meltdown. Few feel as raw as Quinton Hand's stripping off and offering a fight. And yet, behind every incident lies pressure. Pressure that turns calm into chaos. Pressure that makes even the quietest player snap. Snooker's most iconic setting, the Crucible Theater, has witnessed plenty. In 2014, Ronnie O'Sullivan and Mark Selby fought for the world title. O'Sullivan raced ahead. Selby ground him down. Frame by frame, he dragged Ronnie into his rhythm until the champion unraveled. When the final black dropped, Selby celebrated quietly. Ronnie's face was stone. The handshake was ice cold. He walked off before the ceremony began. It wasn't violence. It wasn't words. But it was pure tension. Even away from the table, the cracks show. Kirk Stevens, the stylish Canadian in the white suit, dazzled crowds in the early 80s. Then came the confession. Cocaine addiction, admitted publicly after a string of erratic performances. It wasn't cheating on the table, but it shattered the image of snooker as clean, polite, and detached from temptation. Decades later, in 2021, Shaun Murphy made his own misstep. After losing to amateur Si Jiahui in the UK Championship, Murphy ranted live on TV that amateurs shouldn't be allowed to play professionals. His words dripped with bitterness. It's not fair. Fans and players blasted him for disrespect. Neil Robertson said Murphy had lost the plot. Murphy apologized days later, admitting emotion got the better of him. Too late. The clip went viral. And then there's Tony Drago, the tornado. Blisteringly fast, wildly emotional, sometimes uncontrollable. When the balls didn't fall his way, Drago didn't hide it. He'd slam his cue, shout at himself, storm out mid-frame. The crowd loved him and winced at the same time. He once said, "I only get angry because I care." It was true, but caring can look a lot like chaos. Even moments of triumph can veer into madness. After winning the 1982 World Championship, Alex Higgins cried, called for his wife and baby, and lifted the trophy in one of the sport's most emotional images. Minutes later, still on the microphone, he started accusing officials and rivals. The celebration turned into a rant. It was pure Higgins, beautiful and self-destructive all at once. For a sport that sells itself on control, these eruptions are shocking. But they also reveal something honest. Because snooker, for all its etiquette, is a cauldron of emotion. A single player alone under the lights, in silence, with nowhere to hide. Imagine it, total stillness. Cameras rolling, a million eyes watching. One bad shot, and your reputation collapses. It's not just about skill. It's about holding yourself together while the world waits for you to break. That's why these moments happen. Because snooker isn't played by machines. It's played by people. Flawed, proud, fragile people. Ronnie O'Sullivan once said, "I play my best when I stop caring." Maybe that's why he's both loved and criticized. Because he doesn't follow the script. Alex Higgins couldn't either. He made the sport famous and nearly tore it apart. Even Hendry, Ebden, Williams, the calm ones, had their flashpoints. No one's immune. For every apology after a fluke, there's a slammed cue after a miss. For every handshake, a glare. For every calm exterior, a storm beneath. And that's the paradox. Snooker is the most polite of sports, but its greatest stories come from impolite moments. Without Higgins losing control, would we remember the 1980s the same way? Without Hand's explosion, would modern fans understand how fragile the game's discipline can be? Without Carter's shoulder barge, would we still talk about the 2018 World Championship? These incidents, as messy as they are, give snooker its heartbeat. Because perfection is forgettable. Imperfection lasts forever. The sport's tradition will always be respect. The quiet bow, the handshake, the apology. But sometimes those traditions crack, and what spills out is something real. When a player swears under his breath, slams the table, or refuses a handshake, we see the truth behind the bow tie. Not a gentleman, not a villain, just a person breaking under pressure. And in a strange way, that's what keeps snooker alive. It's not just the clean breaks or century stats. It's the emotion, the unpredictability, the moments where civility gives way to chaos. Those moments remind us why we watch, why we care. Because beneath the calm surface, snooker isn't about silence. It's about tension. It's about pride. It's about human nature fighting itself in real time. When the etiquette fades and the tempers flare, when a sport built on stillness suddenly erupts, that's when snooker becomes unforgettable. The 0% sportsmanship moments aren't the sport's shame. They're its scars. Proof that even in the quietest game on earth, emotion always finds a way out. That's why we remember them. That's why we still talk about them decades later. Because behind every bow tie and handshake lies something far more powerful. A heartbeat, trembling under pressure, waiting for its chance to break free.